Eurocommunism was a trend in the 1970s and 1980s within various Western European communist parties to develop a theory and practice of social transformation that was more relevant for a Western European country and less aligned to the influence or control of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Outside Western Europe, it is sometimes referred to as neocommunism. This theory stresses greater independence. Background, theoretical foundation and inspirations. According to Perry Anderson, the main theoretical foundation of Eurocommunism was Antonio Gramsci's writing about Marxist theory, which questioned the sectarianism of the left and encouraged communist parties to develop social alliances to win hegemonic support for social reforms. Early inspirations can also be found in the Austro-Marxism and its seeking of a third democratic way to socialism. Eurocommunist parties expressed their fidelity to democratic institutions more clearly than before and attempted to widen their appeal by embracing public sector middle-class workers, new social movements such as feminism and gay liberation, and more publicly questioning the Soviet Union. Eurocommunism, however, didn't go as far as the Anglosphere-centered New Left movement. That is a multi-party system with free elections under a socialist economic system, so there is no such thing as a socialist regime, only socialist economies. The legacy of the Prague Spring and particularly its crushing by the Soviet Union in 1968 became a turning point for the communist world. Romania's leader Nicolae Ceausescu staunchly criticized in a speech the Soviet invasion, explicitly declaring his support for the Czechoslovakian leadership under Alexander Dubček, and while the communist parties of Portugal, South Africa and the USA supported the Soviet position, the Italian Communist Party and the Communist Party of Spain firmly denounced the occupation. Even the leadership of the Communist Party of Finland and the Communist Party of France, which had pleaded for conciliation, expressed its disapproval about the Soviet intervention, with the PCF thereby publicly criticizing a Soviet action for the first time in its history. The Communist Party of Greece suffered the major split over the internal disputes over the Prague Spring, with the pro-Dubček faction breaking ties with the Soviet leadership and founding the KKE interior. The usually very pro-Soviet Communist Party of Ireland initially condemned the invasion but later changed their stance, resulting in the short-lived Eurocommunist split, the Irish Marxist Society. Criticism. Two main criticisms have been advanced against Eurocommunism. First, it is alleged by right-wing critics that Eurocommunists showed a lack of courage in definitively breaking off from the Soviet Union. The Italian Communist Party, for example, took this step only in 1981, after the repression of Solidarność in Poland. This timidity has been explained as the fear of losing old members and supporters, many of whom admired the USSR, or with a realpolitik desire to keep the support of a strong and powerful country. Other critics point out the difficulties the Eurocommunist parties had in developing a clear and recognizable strategy. They observe that Eurocommunists have always claimed to be different not only from Soviet communism but also from social democracy, while, in practice, they were always very similar to at least one of these two tendencies. Thus, critics argue that Eurocommunism does not have a well-defined identity and cannot be regarded as a separate movement in its own right. From a Trotskyist point of view, Ernest Mandolin, from Stalinism to Eurocommunism, the bitter fruits of socialism in one country, views Eurocommunism as a subsequent development of the decision taken by the Soviet Union in 1924 to abandon the goal of world revolution and concentrate on social and economic development of the Soviet Union, the doctrine of socialism in one country. According to this vision, the Eurocommunists of the Italian and French Communist parties are considered to be nationalist movements, who together with the Soviet Union abandoned internationalism. The conservative author and journalist Peter Hitchens,
a former Trotskyist, has described Eurocommunism as the intellectual basis of Blairism, the political ideology of former Prime Minister Tony Blair. From an anti-revisionist point of view, Enver Hoxha in Eurocommunism as anti-communism argues that Eurocommunism as the result of Nikita Khrushchev's policy of peaceful coexistence. Khrushchev was accused of being a revisionist who encouraged conciliation with the bourgeoisie rather than adequately calling for its overthrow by the dictatorship of the proletariat. He also stated that the Soviet Union's refusal to reject Palmiro Togliatti's theory of polycentrism encouraged the various pro-Soviet communist parties to moderate their views in order to join cabinets, which in turn forced them to abandon Marxism-Leninism as their leading ideology. More generally, from the point of view of most revolutionary left-wing movements, Eurocommunism simply meant an abandonment of basic communist principles, such as the call for a proletarian revolution, which eventually led many Eurocommunists to abandon communism or even socialism altogether, by giving up their commitment to overthrow capitalism. Such critics felt strongly vindicated when several Eurocommunist parties scrapped their communist credentials following the fall of the Soviet Union.